We'll just get right into it. Hilarious LA comic, Henry Sir. Henry, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me, dude.
Dude, thanks for coming over. I was here with Shuey last time we were here in LA. We were on the Avis bus going to LAX, and you reached out and you were like, hey, man, there's some show going on. You want me to try and get you on the lineup? And I really appreciate that.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah,
man, of course, man. So ever since then, I was like, this guy is chill. So I see you all over the place, man. You at Laugh Factory a lot?
Not so much now. I was doing the Laugh Factory a decent amount. Of the clubs, I do the Comedy Store most here. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, LA is so weird. By LA standards, you can be doing a ton of shows, but when you're like a comic first, you're like, I'm not doing that many shows. You just got to take whatever you can get. So wherever I can do a spot, I'm doing spots.
How many are you doing a week out here, you think?
It depends, man. Like there have been those ones where it's a show every day and some of those 3 or 4 shows in one night. Then there'll be the week after. Like, I don't even know if I do stand up anymore.
Are you able to navigate that though, doing 3 or 4 shows in a night?
It has to really work out because there are those, like, if you have a 8 o'clock show in North Hollywood and then you got to get down to Santa Monica, then up to Hollywood, and then, whatever it is, there's so much driving. There's been a few times where on the last one, I'm like, I can't get there. I want to. I just physically am incapable of it.
Yeah, and like comics, like we just say yes as much as possible. So I'm sure like any show you would just be like, yeah, especially if it's a good one.
So I talk to people about this probably too much, but I get in my head because the plan was, because I'm Canadian and I was living between Edmonton, where I'm from, in New York, and the plan was to just fully move to New York. I never thought I'd be an LA comic, but then it made sense. In my mind, it made sense to come here instead. But I know the grass is always greener, but I do get jealous of that whole concept of, at least in theory, getting to that point where you can just do the club hopping in Manhattan and just not easily, but more easily, just crush out 4 or 5 sets kind of thing.
Yeah, well, in New York, it's funny. I always talk about how you can, as an audience member, you can go to a free comedy show in Bushwick on a Wednesday at 9 p.m. and see some of the funniest comics working. You know what I mean? That's
totally.
Just like kind of how it works in New York. And you're able to do the 3 or 4 spots. Yeah. I don't want to say pretty easily, but like if you structure it well enough, like you don't really have to leave much room for the traffic portion. Like last time we were here, we stayed on Hollywood Boulevard, and then I was telling you, we went up to Bruise Brothers, and it said on the Apple Maps, Google Maps, it said 20 minutes. And we were just at the same light, intersection for 20 minutes. So it ended up taking 45 minutes. But so far, the traffic actually hasn't been so bad, Shuey. And I think it's because we've been kind of starting to travel like post dinner. And then like we went down to, as soon as we landed Thursday, we went down to Hermosa Beach, which we realized on the way was extremely far.
Oh, it's a hike, back,
dude. Yeah. But it was great. It was like an amazing little beach town. And there's so many pockets in LA that just like are amazing. And, I haven't spent as much time out here as I'd like, but previously, I've been out here for comedy and then not for comedy, but I'm starting to like it a little bit more, man, each time.
Yeah, I get it. It's when like my wife and I, again, the intent was New York, but then there was this one time we came out here and we kept going to the same spot in Redondo, and we just would kind of do the same thing of like we'd rent some boogie boards, we'd get some beach chairs and stuff, and we're like, this is pretty sweet. And yeah, the comedy, especially if you are like a stand-up first, at times that can be a confusing thing of like, was this the best decision? But it's a good lifestyle. It's a good lifestyle at times. I'm lucky now that having done it a while, and here's the benefit of starting where I came from in Canada is never really did open mics. You do open mics, but it was one of those cities where even the open mics had crowds. Even like the amateur nights were what they'd call, was pretty much just an open mic that would have one headliner, which was just an open micer doing a longer set. But at some of these shows weekly, you'd have like 70 people there just for comedy.
That's crazy.
It's insane. And it's great, but it also is, the audience is subjected to a lot of shit too, but Edmonton does have a good comedy scene, but also the benefit of coming up in the clubs there is headliners would come through, and if you feature for them, I was lucky enough that enough of them were willing to be like, whether it was New York or here, like, hey, just let me know when you come through and I'll throw your name to some people. So I was really lucky that I kind of got to like expedite some of the open mic scene. And I don't mean that in any kind of arrogant way. Like, I was just so fucking good. That's not it. It was just like lucky circumstances. And then here, so I did some mics in New York, but I was lucky to be able to just do shows, and some were glorified mics, you know how that is. And then here, had good vouchers, and I just do shows here, but I've gone by some of the mics, and I've heard people talk about the mics. I'm sure there's some good ones, it sounds like, but yeah, man, it really does just seem like a lot of comics like wearing bomber jackets, just like looking at like their notes and then going up on stage like, what do I want to talk about today? Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You have 3 minutes.
So how do you feel about your location right now in Los Angeles? If you could just briefly brief us, as I say it twice, on where you are, and then do you feel like you're kind of central, like in the mix and the action?
Yeah, I like it. It's West LA. It's called the neighborhood's called Sawtelle. So it's pretty much Santa Monica, but not on the beach. It's like what was a huge priority to my wife and I was we're from cold ass Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah, we're like, if we're coming here and I'm as if it's some huge sacrifice, but if in some way stand-up's gonna kind of take a back seat, we have to be by the ocean. I'm not going to be one of those guys that goes to the ocean twice a year. We go like at least once a week. That's great. It's like 15, 20 minutes to get down to the ocean, but we're right off the 405. So especially for the clubs in Hollywood, you can be there within 20, 25 minutes, which by LA standards is pretty good.
So when did you move out here exactly?
Well, I moved out here like the classic thing, just like literally 3 weeks before COVID happened. It was perfect.
That's and like then kind of like when Randy was telling us a little bit too, like 6 months before.
Yeah, just ridiculous. And then I went back to Canada for all that. And then when things opened up, came back out here.
How does it work with green card situation?
I'm just super lucky that I'm a dual citizen. My dad's a Yank. So I just am able to work and live in both countries. And my wife, getting her visa was a hassle, but she just got hers and she's all good to go now too.
What's your most favorite part about LA besides the comedy right now? I guess obviously the weather.
Well, it definitely isn't the comedy. No, the comedy. I'm just prone to sounding cynical. Honestly, it has to be. This is going to sound simplistic, but the beach does so much for me mentally, man.
You know what? I can't remember. I was telling you the other day, I think it was like TikTok or something. Someone was talking about how there's a study, or it was Laird Hamilton, who you probably know, right?
I know the name.
Pro
Who
surfer. So I was thinking, the boogie board. Okay. He was on, I think it was on Rogan. He was talking about how looking at the horizon and being on the water does something to your psyche, where it just makes you feel so much better. And I can imagine going to the beach once a week, being from Edmonton. So I completely changed your mindset.
It's just such a rat race, and you get so caught up in so much just bullshit, especially I think wherever you are as a comedian, but especially like in New York or LA, and you start comparing yourself to others, and you just do all these unhealthy habits that are just making you miserable. And then I don't know, I feel like it's just got to be this instinctual primitive thing, kind of like looking at fire almost, you know what I mean? But you go out and you're just looking at this endless water, and you're watching the shades of the sky change. You're getting in the water, you're going this fast riding a wave that's 3 feet high on a boogie board. But I don't know, man, it's just that kind of connecting with, as hippie-ish as this sounds, just kind of connecting with nature and turning your mind off for a little bit and just being like, here's just this really objectively good thing I'm doing for no other reason than this is good. I don't know. It's a great, man, it's a great reset. Like when I came back and my wife was still in Canada, was not in a good headspace mentally, was not staying in a good place. It was a horrible living situation. And I think
you had like roommates or something?
Well, first I did. Yeah, I was such an idiot. Like I'm so bad with names that I realized after a while I was like, I don't know these guys' names.
No way.
I had and it was too late. I was like, I can't be like, what are your guys' names?
How many weeks were you in before?
It was like months, man. And I just like eventually because I was just like getting like essentially like monthly, month-to-month sublet sort of stuff. And then luckily, one of my best friends I grew up with in Edmonton, he and his wife live out here now, so I stayed with them for a little bit. Then I was staying in this just disgusting spot in North Hollywood. It was so grimy. And
what kind of money were you paying for it?
A lot for a little piece of shit room in a piece of shit apartment that just had some guy. You'd go in the living room, the couch, there'd just be some guy sleeping there. I'm like, who is this guy?
He's the landlord.
Yeah, it was gross. But between that and just being a dude who's in my head in the best of times anyways, it was an adjustment. But and I let it kind of be like, fuck, I hate LA, whatever. And it wasn't LA. It was me and the way I was letting it process to me. but you know, sticking it out a little longer, doing better shows, and the wife getting down here, getting to know people more. I am enjoying LA now for the most part.
Do you have friends in the industry now from LA that you would potentially be touring with? I see you're going down to San Diego this weekend. So do you kind of go back and forth?
I mean, I've definitely gotten to know more people. I've been making friends. Hopefully that's something we can, that'll be on the docket. Like I just got asked kind of randomly. This guy who's doing a show at the Comedy Store in La Jolla was just like, will you headline this show?
That's this coming weekend, right?
Yeah, that's Wednesday, and it just worked out really well. That Madhouse, one of the guys who books it, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to headline Thursday, and I was like, yeah. So
and headline, how much time? Like 45 minutes?
I think both are going to be 40.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's great, dude.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's just so nice. Like I'm lucky as a Canadian that when I go back to Canada, I'll headline and stuff, and so and that's so important for me, is to be able to stretch my legs and, you know, go do, whether it's 40, 45, 60 minutes and just really feel like a proper comic again. That stuff, if I don't do that, I go nuts. So I'm really psyched to do that. There's these clubs called like Absolute. I do that. They have a club in Ottawa and they have a club in Toronto. So I'll like headline a weekend in Ottawa, then go do Toronto. And it's just a little bit more of, you don't, especially as a Canadian clubs, you don't need to be famous to headline. If you go and feature there, and if they like you, they might give you a chance to headline. If you do well there, or if you do like headline off night, they'll give you a weekend, and then they'll know a booker at another club. And honestly, all I've ever gone into stuff is just vouches. But it's nice. Like, and have a pretty decent little pipeline, if you want to call it that, of Canadian clubs. Like I can pretty reliably go and do 45 to hour long sets, a good amount. And there's also a lot of really good circuits, like brewery circuits in Alberta, where you can go do like hour-long sets, and it's great.
How long have you been comfortable doing an hour?
Well, longer than I probably should. Like I spent this one time, I've done comedy pretty unconventionally, I think, because I kind of have had to, being from Edmonton, but I have a lot of family in the Midwest, and I spent this one summer where I just like booked shows, the most weird, bizarre shows all throughout the Midwest, and I just would kind of base like some family in the Twin Cities and some family in like Iowa or whatever. And I would just like kind of go all over to all these
trip
and I would just like go back wherever I could line up these longer spots. Some of them were like half hour, some were 35. And then this spot in Wichita was like, we want you to come do an hour. And I was not ready to do an hour, but I was like, fuck it, sure, let's do it. And also a benefit, there's this one club in Edmonton called the Comedy Factory, which is like, go to thecomedyfactory.com. I think that's what it's called. The website, you'll just look at it and be like, I know what he's talking about. It is trash.
That's a great name though, I'll say, for a comedy club.
It's all right, but if once you go to the website, you're like, this is like, it looks like the website was invented pre-internet. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
How many seats do they have there?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter, because the most you'll ever see is 20 people. Like it's attached to this bowling alley, and the guy who runs it is just such a crook. He's such a schmuck. It's just like, if it's like a trope of outdated, bad, like silk shirts and blazers and ponytail brick wall kind of comedy. But a sweet thing about it, in a weird way, was he just would recycle the same rotation of guys who don't really do comedy anymore, that he was able to take advantage of.
Oh, shit.
But I'd go and ask for like a guest spot, and then eventually it got to this weird point where he'd be like, all right, feature didn't show up, I'm gonna ask you to do 20, I'll light you. And then he wouldn't let me, he'd light me. I looked down, I'm like, man, I've done 45 minutes. And he would never pay me, but I never felt bad, because I was like, well, I wasn't doing shit tonight anyways, and I know I'm not undercutting anybody, because he's not paying anybody. So I got to a point where I was like, I don't care, man. If I don't have a spot tonight and I can go do 50, 55 minutes, even like, I don't give a shit, man. It's just like, and you could just fuck around up there. So it made me really comfortable with doing it. So when some clubs asked me to headline, I felt pretty comfortable with it now. And now I really enjoy doing an hour. I just did Calgary and Winnipeg in July, back-to-back weeks. And yeah, it's cool just trying to like document the progress along the way and the little steps you take. It was really cool how natural doing an hour felt to me. It was fun. It was
and how many times did you do that in Canada, though? Like where you were just doing 45, 50
at that
minutes?
horrible club?
Yeah.
I mean, anytime I had a free weekend, honestly, because I was in Edmonton and I would just call the guy and be like, I know you don't have anyone booked. Can I come do a spot? And he's like, see if I can squeeze you in for 15. And then I do like an hour and 10 minutes. Oh, he's such a dork. He's such a dork.
Squeeze you in.
I was going to go to Victoria actually in November to record an album, and they were going to tape it too. But just not, I have an hour that I'm psyched to do, but I just didn't feel like I'd be polished enough by November. But hopefully in the new year, that's something I can do.
Victoria,
BC. So there's this club. It's a crazy name for a club. It's called Hecklers, but it's supposed to be a great club.
All right,
yeah,
I like that name.
Bizarre name.
Not as much as I like the shitty club, the Comedy Factory.
Go to the website. I'm telling you.
Pop it up. Imagine right here.
It has like a hypnotist section, a magician section, a comedian section.
It's like a full performer kind of website.
No. Well, none of those people are there. It's the same 4 comics. They just list all these like ventriloquists, comedians. It's absurd.
Well, I will say that there is obviously an incredible amount of opportunity in LA, but anytime you wanted to go to New York, I think you'd have a great time just running through shows and kind of just feeling it out for a week, you know?
I'd love to. I mean, I do hope I can go to New York like a handful of times in a year, like whatever, 3 times a year, and do like a week or 2. And if I can line up enough shows to do it, I would love to do that. Yeah. I think just being here and getting my name out there a little bit more, because like I really am like my harshest critic, but I think I've gotten.
Sounds like it, bro.
Oh yeah, I'm a nut job, but I feel pretty happy with where I'm at as a stand-up, and maybe I'm wrong, but the consensus I've got from a lot of comics I met out here is like, oh, how did I not know you before? So I think kind of my goal now is just hopefully getting people to know me, and then seeing what opportunities can come once that's more of a thing, and hopefully getting more of an infrastructure, like, you know, proper representation to help facilitate going on the road and stuff like that.
Do you have a favorite spot in LA?
It really is the Comedy Store. The people there have made me feel very, very welcome. All the people that work there, the comics there, they've made me feel very, very welcome. I've never really had that with a club of feeling like I feel like really at home here, but when I'm at the store, I do, and I do like the Improv too. But yeah, I'd say pretty comfortably the store. I don't want to like name drop, but I opened for a comic out here a few times, and he was really kind, and he just told me, he's like, I think you should be in LA, and he was willing to vouch for me. And
you're not going to name drop. You don't have to.
It was I was going to actually say one of the canceled.
Chris Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the canceled comedians.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
But who's canceled right now as a comic? I'm trying to think.
Everyone.
Will Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith vouched for me. Woody Allen vouched for me, and
Harvey Weinstein said you were great.
Yeah, Cosby was like, "You're a good kid."
He was dope. So anyway, yeah.
No, that's fine. Fair. Yeah, just a comic that was willing to give me a really good voucher. Just had really kind things to say. That I don't know. My wife and I talked, and also like I'm so just like tunnel vision, comedy. So if it was up to me, we would have moved to New York years and years and years ago. But there was the visa thing with my wife, which, you know, complicates stuff. And then she likes it better out here, which I understand. And, you know, coming from Edmonton, it's not a huge deal, but going from Edmonton to New York, no direct flights.
Kind of lateral move.
Yeah. And Edmonton to LA, there's direct flights. It's like less than 3 hours. And for family and friends to come visit, and a little less expensive and stuff like that. From a lifestyle standpoint and the vouchers I got, we just kind of figured like, let's give it a try and see. And I'm in my head all the time, whether that was the right decision or not. But I know I could be in New York and doing well out there, and it'd be in my head the whole time of like, why aren't I in LA? That's just how my mind unfortunately works.
Fortunately works. Favorite part about LA?
Favorite part? Other than the beaches, yeah, I will say.
And is the traffic that bad? We're curious.
I mean, I'm used to it now, but I would say the traffic is that bad. Yeah. Like, it's insane.
Like, what time did you leave to get here?
It took me 50 minutes to get here, man.
Yo.
Yeah. And it's not a long distance.
And how long would that take at 9 p.m. tonight? 20?
Like, I bet 25-ish. Yeah. So you're doubling time. Like when I go back to Edmonton, people are like, it's rush hour. It's going to take forever. I'm like, it took 7 minutes. What are you talking about?
Dude, that's like New York too.
Yeah.
This fucking train. Yeah. Somebody jumped on the tracks.
Yeah.
It will be 3 minutes extra.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Get out and walk, dude. Yeah, that's all. But best part about LA besides beaches and weather.
I don't know, man. That's kind of, no, that's not it.
Maybe the people?
Definitely not the people.
Interesting. Did you like the people in New York better?
I feel like
And how much time were you in New York? Double question.
It was a couple years of going back and forth. So again, it was never long enough that I was like, I'm a New York guy. It was never that, but it was enough that I felt like I had a very, very good understanding of it. And I'd stay in Astoria and I really liked it. And so here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to say. The good people in LA are some of the coolest people I've ever met. And that is maybe one of my favorite parts about LA is that when you meet that good people, that good group of people, I appreciate that there is kind of that sense of people that in however they're pursuing this, whatever it is and whatever their outlet is, they're just kind of saying like, I didn't want to live that conventional life that I felt if I stayed at home, I had to. So this seemed like a good place to come and follow what I wanted to do with life. I really like that. I know that's the thing in New York too, but here's what I'm going to say I think sucks about both people at the extremes. In LA, there's just obviously a lot of like the most narcissistic people you'll ever meet, fake, phony, all they want to do is network. You're not even a human being. You're just like a potential opportunity. And when they see, oh, you're not of any help to me, it's just like
a notch on the old socialized.
No, exactly. Belt. And you just see so much like despicable behavior towards other people and so much just elitist bullshit. Like an example I say is I was going to get some comfort food. I was feeling a little down and I'm waiting in this little parking lot in my car because I'm waiting for a family to cross the street so I don't hit and kill them. And the car behind me just swerves ahead of me and takes literally the last parking spot. And I'm like thinking the person's going to come out and I'm just going to be like, what the hell is wrong with you? The person gets out, doesn't even look at me. I don't even thought they did anything rude. They're just were like, well, no, I see something and I want that. And I'm the only thing in this world that matters. So why wouldn't I have done that? That's not everybody here. That's an extreme, but there is enough of that stuff here. And it's just shit of like all these people. And you get a lot of this in New York too. I thought of, people pretending to be like a man of the people or person of the people. And I'm progressive. It's like, you went to fucking Yale. Your parents pay your rent. Like you are the problem. You're the problem you're pretending to hate. And that kind of disingenuous bullshit in both cities drives me nuts. But I did kind of just, I don't know, something resonated with me about just kind of like the put your head down, no bullshit thing about New York. But it also would get to a point where it's like, I'm ordering food and I'm like, hey, could I please get this? And the person at till's like, fine. It's like, okay, I know you live in New York, but that doesn't mean you just have to be an asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you like about both cities?
Well, I think now that I'm starting to like LA is the fact that there are people who come out here to pursue their dreams, like yourself, the comedy and meeting so many people in the same industry or kind of the people that kind of want the same things that I want. I think that there's like a unison and it makes me feel good about it. And also, I mean, the same thing in New York. The weather is terrible. There's sometimes some terrible people, but there are terrible people out here too. So like totally. Both coasts have those people, I think, because you kind of center yourself around the city of LA or New York City if you're looking to do something in entertainment or something that other people don't do.
Yeah, and something I do like about New York and could be off on, but the impression I got is I feel like people go to New York at whatever it is they're doing. They just want to be really great at it. That could be comedy. That could be writing. That could be acting. That could be, food, whatever it might be. Whereas in LA, by and large, it feels like a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't care how, I just want to be on that screen. I do appreciate that there's a bit more of an emphasis on being like a little more chilled out and friendly here than the kind of like, just New York, I'm walking here, kind of everything has to make me roll my eyes. And like a good friend of mine from Edmonton lives in New York, and he was telling me, but like what drives him insane is you just have to complain in New York. People just love being like, I'm fucking paying this much for fucking rent, this little thing.
That's what happens with coworkers in New York City. I'll say a lot. When you see two coworkers walking on the street, you'll rarely ever hear them talking about anything besides work. Like they're complaining about somebody who they just had a meeting with, and she's doing everything wrong, and she's micromanaging. You hear a lot of freaking complaining, a lot of sulk bonding,
a lot of complaining, and it's a lot of like, it gets to that point of like, I'm paying off for this rent, I gotta take this shitty subway, I'm not gonna open at 8, and there's that part's like, then fucking move. Or it's like, then they get the raise, and now they can afford it. And it's like, well, now I'll just get a more expensive place so I can continue to complain about the same things.
Rat race, man.
Dude, I was just listening to this podcast on the way over here about the lifestyle of people in Denmark and why it's as happy as it is and why we're as unhappy as we are. And it was just one of those like defeated, like, what the fuck are we doing?
Well, why? What did they say?
Well, I mean, there was a lot to it, but just how much of it, kind of in a nutshell, of how much of like the priority is over there isn't just about like being productive, be productive, make money. Like there, it's more like a 33-hour work week that it's like you're supposed to socialize. It's not an excuse. If you have to leave, if you're working a 9 to 5 equivalent over there, and it's like, well, I have to be out at 4 because I got to go pick up my kid. It's like, well, yeah, obviously you have to go. That's not like a, I don't know, man. We said you're working till 5, and just like you're supposed to socialize, you're supposed to be a human being. It's not just supposed to be the rat race of like, you know, work as hard, make as much money as you can, get as many followers on social media, be as notable as you can so that you hope your parents are proud of you. You know what I mean? Just the rat race. It sounds like it's less of a rat race. Less of a hyper-capitalist rat race.
Yeah, dude. You've been doing any sketches when you've been out here in LA, messing around with like acting and stuff?
I mean, I'd like to get into the acting stuff. I've just been like I haven't had time, man. Like it's my wife just got her visa, but I've been the only guy providing for us money-wise. And you know, if people come from money, cool, good for them. We don't, so I have to make money, and I've you know, work during the days, try and write as much as I can while I'm pretending to work during the days, and then
why quitting yet writing?
Oh yeah, I am a master of time theft. It's insane. I can be so productive at work and then make them think like, wow, he's killing it. Well,
he deserves a raise.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I just wrote like a pilot script, but I just like pretended I was stressed about what you have me working on. And then it's like, get home, try and be present to like be a decent husband, and then go hustle like comedy, and here and there, like, well, we'll shoot a stupid little, like, I want to shoot more of them. We have this one, like my wife actually told me, it was really fun, like this really stupid thing called Prank Boys, which is just making fun of prank shows, where it's like, frame it as if it's like a real early 2000s MTV, like where these teenagers going out prank people. We're actually just doing nice things. Like the only one I did is like, I was in a drive-through and I did a pay it forward, where I actually like paid for the person behind me, but we filmed it as if like she has no idea what's happening. Oh, fucking get out of here. So stupid. But we want to film some more of those, but I'd like to get into that stuff more. I'm sorry to sound like preachy, because again, this is a bit of an insecurity thing, but I really dislike social media, and I think it's just an evil, awful thing. And it truly makes me just feel like a fucking septic tank of a human being. But for me to like confidently release something, I need to build more of a following on that before I do.
Well, do you feel like it's kind of a hit and miss though? Because I mean, you get a ton of views and have a lot of followers, but like, do you feel like there's a good part of that, and then also the bad part, of course, you were talking about?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a good part. Like, there's absolutely a good part. There's the shitty, cynical side of me, which I'll start with, which is unfortunately how most things. I try qualifying now, and even just to myself, I've always just kind of thought like, am I a dick? Am I an asshole? But
no, bro, I think we're also sorry, don't mean to interrupt you. We're having a great time. I think you're a nice guy.
Oh, good. Thank you, man. But that's just the way, unfortunately, things process when they're going through my dome. A lot of it is pessimism and cynicism, but those aren't my actual values. But I have to work pretty hard to get through that bullshit and view things in a healthier way. So I get caught a lot of times in social media, watching it and just seeing, I'm like, this this is the fucking thing that's blowing up. It's just like some guy like making dolphin noises on stage, and you know, it's like 85 billion views. And I'm like, I hate this. I fucking hate this. But that also is that's me choosing to only focus on the negative. I also know some people who are great fucking comics who, because of social media, are blowing up, and now they're selling out clubs, and that's awesome.
That's a beautiful thing.
It's awesome. And so there is that part of me where it's like, yes, like scientifically, it's just like a factual thing. It's bad for people's mental health. And I say this all the time, but it's a tough thing when everybody's a mental health advocate, but it's also like, but if you're not present enough on social media, we're just going to not acknowledge your existence. So there is the shitty side, but there also is the really great side of it's a valuable tool for people who haven't had the resources otherwise to get their name out there and, you know, honestly realize their dreams. So there is a lot of good to it too. It's just, I have a hard time with it because it makes me feel bad and I want to avoid it, but I can't. Because I love comedy enough that I'm willing to let myself feel bad because doing comedy makes me feel good enough.
Do you have any favorite comics in LA that you've worked with or that you're buddies with?
Yeah. There's Jason. Speaking of a guy who's really blowing up because of social media right now. We're getting to know each other more. Jason Shenny's so good, man. He is so funny. Mm-hmm. He is so funny, and he's blowing up on social media. Mike Falzone, big fan of him. Luscious, long-haired dude. Ashley Ray, I'm a big fan of. Amy Miller, I'm a big fan of. There's so many. There is that stereotype of like all LA comics are just wearing bomber jackets and doing act outs, and like, yeah, there's a lot of that. But there also are a lot of really, really talented, smart, great comics out here. Yeah. What do you think of an LA comic as what's your thought as a New York guy of LA comedy?
Interesting, man. I think that New York, maybe more so, you focus on the joke writing.
Totally.
Kind of the like the one-liners.
Yeah.
And then out here, I feel like we hear more storytelling.
Very much so.
You know what I mean?
Very
Where it's like there might not be a punchline, but the story in general is supposed to have a full circle of funniness.
Totally.
Like a laugh here, a laugh there, and then waiting a couple minutes, and then you get a laugh. When you see guys like Dave Attell, you see a guy who came on the podcast who isn't yet well known, but he does a Grizzly Pear in the West Village all the time. You familiar with the Grizzly Pear? Around the corner from the Comedy Cellar, Chris Kinback, a guy who he, just one-liners. So like New York seems like a big one-liner city, and people just want to be laughing 5 times a minute. When in LA, people are more, I don't want to say in awe struck of the person on stage, but maybe they have a little bit more patience being in LA, and everything maybe moves a little bit slower.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think storytelling out here, I think.
Definitely more storytelling out here, and New York is definitely more joke focused, which is what I liked about it so much, because I used to be much more like just only thing I wanted people to laugh at was what I was saying, and now I've changed. Like, I'm not some animated dude. I'm pretty low energy, but I'm way less of a joke writer now than I used to be, but I'm not even necessarily doing stories. It's just, I will say a good thing about LA is I think it's kind of taught me how to just, without jumping the shark, say funny stuff, but be funny while I'm saying it, if that makes sense.
No, I saw Kevin Nealon the other night at Hollywood Improv, and I think that's like a perfect way to describe him. Like, I was dying at some of the jokes that he was saying, but also just like in between talking to the crowd, just doing funny things.
Like, it's not hacky on stage to be funny. And there are, like, I really do like New York comedy, but I do also think there's a good amount of New York comics that kind of get bogged down, and where it's like, it's such a structured joke where it's like, it almost feels like you're up there telling knock jokes. You know what I mean? And a comedy just changes, but I feel like it's going to sound so crazy, but in stand up, it's almost like jokes, just like set a punchline. That's kind of on the way out right now. And I do also get a kick, just because I love doing stand up, and I love stand up, but I also realize how silly of a thing it is. And you kind of do get those like crusaders, or like New York is just the most pure form of comedy. But then it's like, there's a lot of dudes on TikTok there too. Like, where are you from, huh? Dallas? Yeah. Fucking idiot. And that's the clip. gets 1 billion views.
It's a lot of zoned in on this is the way you're supposed to do stand up in New York, more so.
Right. But there's great comedy in both cities. Totally. There's bad comedy in both cities. It's not unique to either.
When were you first comfortable with an hour? How long did it take you to build to that?
Honestly, not till, you know what's weird is like post-COVID, after that long break and just all the pressure was off, the club in Edmonton, the comic strip, they normally only book Americans, but they couldn't get Americans, so they were resorting to us pleb Canadians, and I got a headline there, and I was just like, the pressure was off because I was like, well, I haven't really done comedy in 6 months, so of course I'm going to be sloppy. And I just was like, fuck it, don't worry if your jokes are tight. And I went up and I had so much fun. It was only 45 minutes, but it was kind of one of those things where I looked down, I was like, shit, I didn't even get to the stuff I wanted to say.
How many years did it take you to get to that?
How many years? So bad at math. I would say like 8 probably. I started comedy when I was 21, but I was only doing it, like I was still playing basketball in college and stuff. So I just would do it when my name came up on like the rotation of the amateur night at the comedy club in Edmonton. But I was thinking about, like, once I'd started doing it, I think I was thinking like a comic. I was writing jokes a lot and I was obsessing over it. But then after college, I really got into it. But I would say it was like, 8 years before I felt comfortable. And I think that COVID shift of just having a little bit of a different perspective of just being like, man, just chill the fuck out.
Did COVID really jam you up though? Like when everything shut down, what was your mindset like? I know you went back to Canada.
Oh, it was relief, man.
Really?
Yeah. I think I'm working on it, but I struggle with comparing myself to others. And when COVID happened and the world shut down, other than just the scary aspect of a global pandemic, but from a comedy perspective, I was like, thank Christ, because now I can just not be productive, sit on my ass and watch fucking Tiger King. Everyone was doing that. Yeah, man. But no, that's the thing. Nobody else was being productive either. Yeah. So I wasn't worried about like, well, I'm getting fucking lapped by so-and-so or this person or that person. And then when things started opening up, I was psyched, but I also just had that pit. I was like, fuck.
It's happened to me.
Because I know the mental shit I'm going to be putting myself through, you know?
And now here you are, dude. Oh, yeah. Killing it.
Never putting myself through mental shit, ever.
Let's go.
No, I'm working on it, man. But I will say, after all that, and the more I've done it, like I love doing comedy more than I've ever done it. I love being on stage. The other stuff outside of it, a lot of work to do, but just the act and practice of doing stand up, I enjoy it now more than ever, which is pretty cool. And I have to remind myself to be really grateful for that.
Amazing, man. Yeah, dude, You're doing what you love, right?
Yeah, man.
You're doing what you love. Dude. We're all freaking out here trying. Henry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today,
Thanks
man.
For having me,
so
dude.
We're going to pop up your Instagram here and then shout out any dates, San Diego stuff, LA stuff, whatever, man, where we can find you.
Yeah, it's at HenrySir33. On everything I'm at, I don't know when this will be up. Will it be up this week?
It'll be Monday.
And you're gonna miss me in San Diego, God you pieces of shit. I'm not sure. I'm gonna be in Calgary next month, October 17th to 22nd. And then I think I'm going to have some dates in the new year. But yeah, if you could follow me, you'll see, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Henry, such a great dude.
Thanks,
really
bro.
appreciate you coming
Appreciate
on the podcast. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Peace.